This man's body is bigger than a goal net. Change for San Jose. Fired in for ball. Shields sprawls and makes the save. What a save by Miller. You want Miller time? You're on. Well, the net and got trapped out there as he bumps in the corner. There it is. He puts him at the ball. You're on. Incredible save. He robbed him. Call a cop. He robbed Elmore blind. Call a cop. I don't believe it. He puts it in front of the net. Backhand. And Deron makes the save. Barney Deron scrolled like a snow angel. Breakaway. Becca walking right in. Score! Michael Becca, top shelf where Mama hides the cookie. Got it in front and shot scores. Randy Burridge, top shelf where Mama hides the cookies. Well, 'tis the season.
What a hell of a journey that 2 minutes was. You guys remember that? I know I do. Bits and pieces, I can say. Can't really say I fully remember the Pat LaFontaine years. I'm, dating myself here, but I'll be 27 in 4 weeks. April 2nd, 2019. Ryan Thomas's birthday is April 30th. Yes, I just referred to myself in the third person, but so that you guys know, feel free to wish me a happy birthday on that day. And as I take a trip down memory lane there with some of the best calls by Sabres play-by-play announcer Rick Jeanneret, one of my favorite ever of all time. Really, as I watch a video like that, I played it at the beginning of the podcast so that Sabres fans could kind of just remember where we've come from to where we are, to where we want to be, to where potentially we see ourselves currently in every facet. And this is probably one of the tougher Thomas Take episodes that I've ever done, because I like to think that I have my finger on the pulse of what's going on and how things are going to change and how things can get better and what direction this team should go in. And I will give you all of that tonight on the show. But I also have no idea why things are the way they are with the Buffalo Sabres. And the reality of the situation is the Buffalo Sabres are one of the bottom feeder teams in the National Hockey League. At one point, yes, 17-6-2 or 17-6 in general wins-loss record. Now they're 31-39 and whatever how many overtime losses they have. And it's very tough as a Sabres fan to go through what we've gone through since 1999, the no-goal Stanley Cup, one of the worst quote-unquote robberies in professional sports history, let alone in a championship-winning game ultimately for the Dallas Stars, to putting this team together with these players that nobody really wanted, and that lightning strike in a bottle, the once-in-a-lifetime team that they were able to have, with Daniel Briere, with Chris Jury, with Brian Campbell, with Jay McKee, with Ryan Miller. That season 05-06 is what I'm referring to, where they ultimately lost to the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Finals in 7 games. 7 or 6 games, I can't remember off the top of my head, but with a 2-goal lead heading into the third period of that deciding game in that series. So, ultimately Carolina, they go on to play in the Stanley Cup, and Buffalo goes home, and Carolina wins that Stanley Cup against Edmonton in pretty dominant fashion, whereas Edmonton was really a Cinderella story as well that year, but were not really known as having a great team in a weaker Western Conference of the NHL at that time. And then what I consider to be B-Day, I've always called it, Buffalo Day, in the Sabres lore, July 1st, 2007, Danny Briere and Chris Jury walk, and Jay McKee walks, and we signed Thomas Vanek to a 7-year, $56 million contract. It was a contract that we didn't even essentially write. It was a contract that was written by the Edmonton Oilers that Buffalo was forced to match, where they let Jury and Briere go. They could have let Thomas Vanek go, and being that he was a restricted free agent, we would have got a lot of picks, 4 picks in particular in the first round for Vanek at that time from Edmonton. So, the management has been so bad. The coaching has been another entity in and of itself that's been horrible ever since Lindy Ruff was fired, and ultimately, playing in an assistant role now, but he's basically on his last legs as a coach in his NHL coaching career. For a coach to be here for as long as he was, we decide, hey, the message is getting a little stale, and that happens. When a coach is in one place for so long, the message does get a little stale, and you need to make an adjustment. You need to make a change. Enter in Ron Rolston, who was a minor league coach who flamed out. Enter in Ted Nolan coming back, who was the coach prior to Lindy Ruff that pretty much assembled that gritty, hard-working team in the mid to late 90s that ultimately went to a Stanley Cup with Lindy at that time in the late 90s. They get him back to kind of be the recuperation coach for this franchise. And yeah, this franchise has a storied history, some phenomenal players on it, and a fan base that has always shown their support for the blue and gold, or for the red and black, or once again for the blue and gold. And really pains me to see what these fans of the Sabres especially have gone through these last 10 to 15 years. And I hate to say this, I hate to say it, but I'm wondering if we've only just begun suffering as far as Sabres fans go. I mean, Ted Nolan comes in, he gets the boot. Then we believe that Tim Murray is this GM that can refine and reshape this team and bring it back to prominence. He can't do it. He's made some horrible deals during his time as the Sabres GM. And I've said this before, and I've gotten into ridiculous arguments rather than debates. People have tried to argue with me this just opinion that is of mine. You can't really. I'm not saying this is fact. I believe this based on a numerous amount of facts that arguably the 2 worst GMs in Buffalo sports history were at the same exact time, with Doug Whaley and with Tim Murray. Both guys in way over their head, swung for the fences and missed and struck out every single time at the plate, and rarely made a good move. And Tim Murray was one of the worst GMs in recent memory. So Jason Botterill comes in. He tries to bring in a new attitude, and here we are with another reset of another GM and another head coach. Jason Botterill, former Sabres player, known as a grinder, known as a little bit of an enforcer, had some success as an assistant GM in Pittsburgh. We bring him in here. He brings in Phil Housley. He wants Phil Housley, former Sabres captain, former Sabres defenseman, obviously, and a Hockey Hall of Famer. They think that is what the doctor ordered due to the fact that Phil Housley ran a successful unit with the Nashville Predators, who were in the Stanley Cup the year before. And I'm going through this as if you guys don't already know this, but I have to mentally to just allow yourselves the timeline of all these changes the Sabres have already gone through. And here we are again with the possibility of another change. Now, Terry Pegula Kim Pegula and Jason Bottrill have alluded to the fact that we'll just get to right into the first subject right away. They've alluded to the fact that Phil Housley is staying put. He's not going anywhere. He's going to stay put. He's going to be the Sabres head coach. And I can say this with the utmost honesty. I can say that I wanted Phil Housley to work. I thought Phil Housley would work. I wanted, as recent as 2 months ago, for Phil Housley to stay here in Buffalo due to the fact that I felt like the Sabres needed quote-unquote continuity. But the Sabres are losing every game. They're not winning any game. They're not putting up goals. They're not doing anything to make me think that they are playing for current Sabres head coach Phil Housley. And it's very upsetting because I feel like they have good reason to not play for their coach. But then on the other hand, I think of it as, you know what's on the line. You guys need to start playing harder. I think the precedent, the culture has been set, especially with the Sabres. The Buffalo Bills, if you look at other sports in Buffalo, sports teams in Buffalo, the Bills especially, they have done a hell of a job at somewhat reinvigorating the culture of fans and reinventing themselves as an organization. When you look at the Buffalo Bills logo now, you don't see the same things that you used to see. When you look at the Sabres logo, you see the same things that you've always seen. You've seen players come and go, fingers being pointed, and just this carousel of coaches that I think will never come to an end at this point. We have no reason to think that it will come to an end. And I'm not saying that I want Phil Housley to stay, but I think that they've done a horrible job at bringing in coaches that actually want to coach, because those coaches that want to coach and be a head coach don't want to coach here, regardless of the talent that they have, the young talent, as I've said so many times, the Eichels, the Middlestats, the Reinhardts, the Dahleens. All those guys are great. There's plenty more than that as well. Olofsson, Nylander, McCabe. There's so many more. Pekka Luukkonen, the goalie from Finland. There's a lot of young talent on the Sabres team. They got a lot of it. But what does that get you when you don't have a coach? Where does that take you when you don't have a leader? A true leader. And I say this, I think Jack Eichel should have the C on his jersey. I think Jack Eichel deserves to have that C on his jersey. But I think to be a leader, you don't have to wear the C on your chest. You don't have to have the C on your sweater. To be a leader, you can lead in a lot of different ways without having that label. Jack Eichel does it through that label, but other players on this team could be leaders too. And they choose not to be, or they don't know how to be, or they're forced into that role knowing that they're not made for that specific role. Do I think Phil Housley will be back? I've said for the last couple months that I think he will be back, but they have lost so much that you really got to wonder, where is this going? What is the direction of the team? This was supposed to be the year that the Sabres made the playoffs. This was supposed to be the year where the Sabres made it look as if they were getting better. Right now, the Sabres, points-wise, are worse than they were during Jack Eichel's rookie season. They've gotten worse as the years have gone on with Jack Eichel. That is completely and totally unacceptable. And there's no two ways about it. That falls on the shoulders of these two gentlemen that the fans refer to. But you know whose shoulders I think it falls on the most? Not Jack Eichel. Not Jeff Skinner, who we'll get to in a little bit. Not Jason Bottrill. Not Phil Housley. This failure of a season rests solely on the shoulders of Terry Pegula. Nobody else. Not Kim. Not anybody else. Terry Pegula made a promise to the millions of Sabres fans around the world that the sole purpose for the Buffalo Sabres in the National Hockey League was to win a Stanley Cup. Terry Pegula has done nothing to say that to show that message in his actions within the team. No actions within the team have shown me that Terry Pegula really cares about this team, one, or two, that he's made great decisions. Almost every decision that the Sabres have made with Terry under this ownership, since 2011, has been a huge just joke. This team hasn't even made the playoffs. This team hasn't made the playoffs since Terry bought the team. And he's talking about Stanley Cup, and give me a break. Give me a break. As a fan, I need a break from watching this shit show continue. Pardon my French. I don't like to swear on the podcast, but that's what I've seen these last few months. Rasmus Dahlin, yeah, he's an 18-year-old kid. Yeah, he's going to make mistakes. Yeah, he's probably one of the best players on the team, and he's 18 years old. Where are the vets? Marco Scandella has been terrible this year. Vladimir Sabatka, terrible. He needs to go. You have a team with one great line in Skinner, Eichel, and Reinhart. When that line's together, when that line is firing on all cylinders, it's a hell of a line. You got a second line that you have a young center on that second line in Casey Middlestat. What a difference it would have made had Ryan O'Reilly not made the dumbest comment probably that I've heard a Buffalo sports athlete say to the Buffalo media in quite a while. That he did not have the same love for the game. That was the beginning of the end of Ryan O'Reilly in Buffalo. When he said that statement during locker cleanouts last season, that was what led him to go, ultimately. That perception could not change after that, of his laziness, of his lack of desire to win. And you know what? Maybe we were wrong about that. Maybe Ryan O'Reilly, there was some right, half wrong on that. Ryan O'Reilly didn't want to compete because playing here, the precedent, the culture, whatever you want to call it, there's this dark cloud hanging over the Buffalo Sabres right now, and it has not gone away. It has not gone away in over 10 years. I don't know if it ever will. Because if we continue to make these failed attempts at making this team great, with failed attempts at bringing in great coaches, great GMs, will we ever be better? Will we ever get good? I don't know. I know that this team has far more talent on it than even what people realize, and they are terrible. I mean, they are so bad, the players don't even look like they give a damn anymore, and I would not either if I knew that this team was going down. I would try my best to put in my best effort, but it's not good. Let's dive into the Jeff Skinner situation. Jeff Skinner has been the lone bright spot in the season. And I don't take, I'm not shunning anyone else by saying that. I say the lone bright spot because he was so unexpectedly great this season. I've always liked Jeff Skinner. To be quite honest, he's always been a guy that I've wanted to trade for and ultimately did trade for an EA NHL video game, obviously. I'd always get Jeff Skinner, always. And I like his speed, I like his offensive ability, and he flourished with Jack Eichel on this Buffalo Sabres team at the start of the season, October, November. But does Jeff Skinner stay? If I'm Jeff Skinner, do I stay? No, I don't. I leave. I leave this stinky, sinking ship that is the Buffalo Sabres. And I go to a team with a precedent, with a culture, with drive to win. They can talk about how much they want to win and how much they want this team to be great and what they need to do in order to make it better. But actions speak louder than words. And they cannot make this happen. They have not made this happen. Terry, Kim, now Jason Bottrill. What if they are progressively worse next year? What if they decide to keep Housley and Bottrill, and they decide to keep both of them? And what happens then if they fizzle out October, November, December? They get fired, and we bring up the Amerks coach. It's the same cycle. They are the same place they were in 5-6 years ago, and it's a damn shame because Jack Eichel's going to be here a long time. He's going to have to put up with this garbage. Jeff Skinner, does he really want to sign up for this? Are we making a great case for Jeff Skinner to want to stay here? Jeff Skinner's done everything and anything and more to show that he loves playing here. He's an Ontario native. He's a guy that really understands the precedent and culture that has been laid out by these fans. Probably just turned my back snap. But I'm just very, very torn up inside as a Buffalo Sabres fan. A lot of people ask me, why don't you talk about the Sabres more on your podcast? You probably should. Yeah, I probably should because I am a fan and I watch practically every game that I can if I'm not working or if I don't have other plans. And I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this anymore. I'm at a point where my leash as a fan, my shelf life, whatever you want to call it, as a fan of the Sabres would deteriorate 10 times faster than it would of the Buffalo Bills. One, I'm more of a football guy than a hockey guy. I love hockey, but I love football more. Two, the Sabres have done nothing to show me anything as far as them getting better. By sheer luck, they have one of the best players on their team in Rasmus Dahlin. Granted, they wish they had luck on their side too when they were able to pick. They had the highest probability of that first pick the year McDavid and Eichel came out. And I think Jack fits in well with this city. I think McDavid fits in well with that city up in Edmonton. But Jack Eichel's got to be far more vocal, in my opinion. I feel like there's things that he wants to say, but he just doesn't say it because he doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But it is what it is. It is what it is. I feel like there's an opportunity here for greatness. Greatness could be achieved with this team. And a Stanley Cup could be possible. But with the wrong leadership, the wrong tutelage, the wrong coaches, the misery could just be starting, which is very scary. And I hope these Sabres fans realize no amount of support is going to change anything. I personally would rather boycott going to a Sabres game if I had season tickets and would honestly see if some famous guy could buy out the rest of the seats and the Sabres can walk out to the ice with empty seats, except the fans that are there to see the other team play. And guess what? It's practically happening already. More Toronto fans in the arena than Sabres fans? Are you kidding me? This is what is respectable now? That is disgusting. That should never, ever happen. There should never be more Toronto fans in the crowd than Buffalo fans in Buffalo. That should never, ever happen. But it is. Why? Because our owner wants to sit on his hands and gloat about how he saved the team. We're past that. That honeymoon phase is over. It's been over. Jason Bottrill, wake up. It's too late now to make a move. Past the trade deadline. You only made one move prior to the trade deadline for a defenseman, who I like, by the way, but we need more than that. Why are these guys Olofsson? Why is Nylander? Why are all these players that show offensive prowess in Rochester, in the minor leagues, why are they being called up in March or April? We needed these guys months ago. Well, it's about how a development of the minor league club is going to help the development of the NHL club. Not if the guys aren't playing together. Not if the guys that should be in the NHL are still in the AHL. Yeah, I get it. I get development. The longer they're in the minor leagues, the more ready they are for the pros. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. If I have the before-mentioned Vladimir Sabatka on this team playing like complete and total garbage, do not tell me that that you can't make a move here and there to tweak the roster, to send a guy down, to call a guy up. They did this. They did this. The fans have done everything they possibly can to support this team. And sometimes I would go as far to say unrightfully so. These fans should have no reason to want to continue to support this team until they notice that there's real change taking place. If I had the money to buy every seat in KeyBank Arena or First Niagara Center, or whatever it's been called in the last 25 years, if I had the money to buy it all out so that team could walk out onto the ice with empty seats except for the fans that are there to watch the other team, I'd do it because they deserve it. It will not change until we decide for it to change. I've said this about the Bills. I've said this about the Sabres, and I'm saying it again about the Sabres. Because it's only right, it's only fair, it's only justified that they suffer the way that we've suffered. We've shown our support for them for what? What have we received as fans in return for our support? Nothing. Disappointment and embarrassment. If you were Jeff Skinner, would you stay? Would you want to be a part of this? Would you want to buckle up and embrace for impact? Because that's what Jeff Skinner is going to have to do if he decides to stay here. Buckle up, Jeff. Brace for impact. Houston, we have a problem. No, Buffalo, we have a real problem. We have a guy that paid more money than what the team was worth to keep him here. Thank you, Terry. We've said our thank you over and over and over again. Have you repaid us? No, you have not. No, you have not. If you're spread too thin of owning two professional sports franchises, the Bills, the Sabres, fine. You laid out a plan for that. You got Kim running the Bills, but the onus runs on you. It's on you with this Buffalo Sabres team. You and you alone. You promised that the sole purpose of the Sabres' existence would be to win the Stanley Cup. And here we are playing our arch rival, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and there's more Maple Leafs fans in the stands than there are Sabres fans. That right there is probably one of the most demoralizingly embarrassing facts of recent Buffalo sports history than anything I've ever heard in my lifetime as a Buffalonian, in my lifetime as a Buffalo sports fan. It makes me sick and very angry, to be quite honest. Very angry. And yeah, I am heated. I am heated up. I am fired up because this team should be winning right now. This team should be in the thick of a playoff berth. And instead, we barely won games in March, 2 games in March. In the whole month of March, they won 2 games. You have a coach that's being publicly endorsed by his boss and you have a coach that's being publicly endorsed by the owner of the team, the true boss. I wish that there was something I could do. I wish that I could tell these fans that there's no reason to continue to support this. And that's what I'm doing. If they want to support it, that's up to them. I'm not going to tie their, I'm going to support this team whenever I damn well feel like it. People want to say I'm a fair weather fan, whatever. I really don't care. I'm going to support this team however I so choose, because they don't make it easy. They haven't made it easy. It's been very hard to support this team. I don't want to be one of those fans that said, yeah, I was with them during the tough times. No, they don't deserve my time during the tough times. There's been too many tough times for them to deserve my time. We're talking about the same franchise that let their two best players walk for nothing in 1 hour on one day. Granted, not the same owner, not the same GM. I know all that, but still the same franchise. This franchise history is the franchise history for a reason. And it's very, very worrisome and very, very sad and very, very frustrating as a fan that I have had to witness this, that you have had to witness this again and again and again. The state of the Sabres is the fans are more pissed than they've ever been, and rightfully so. Do something about it, Terry. Do something about it, Jason Bottrill. Maybe do something about it, Phil Housley. I think of all the guys, should he be the fall guy? That's a debate for another day. Will he be the fall guy? 100 Buffalo Sabres %. He will be the fall guy for this. When really the criticism, in my opinion, should be on everyone. But most importantly, if the criticism is on everyone, who's in charge? Who runs the show? Is this team just owned by a guy? Or does he actually want to be an owner that runs the day-to-day operations of the team and has his fingerprint on everything? I don't think that's the case with Terry Pegula. I think the case is he saw they were for sale. He was interested. He loves the team. He loves Buffalo. He wanted to keep them here, and he wanted to be the owner of the team. Other than that, I don't know where his interest really lies, the true root of it. This is the whole purpose of this team being here is a Stanley Cup. They haven't made the playoffs since. They haven't won a playoff series since they had Danny Briere and Chris Drury on their team. Talk about just true, I can't say true fact because it is true fact. Talk about, I don't know. It's truly amazing that is a fact. That says everything that you need to hear in and of itself. That one statement, the fact that the Sabres haven't won a playoff series since they had Briere and Drury on their team in those few years that they did. I'm a very hardcore, true Buffalonian. Red and blue, blue and gold. Always have been, always will be. That's one of the beautiful things about this area is that people rallied around my idea for myself to start a radio podcast, a sports podcast. I start this idea with the hope that I can convey a new message to Buffalo Sabres fans, to Buffalo Bills fans, that, yeah, we got a long way to go, but I'm here for it. And yeah, I know I said I'll choose to be a fan when I want to be, but I'm so tired of pretending to be a fan when I don't really feel like being one right now. It's very hard to be a fan of this Buffalo Sabres franchise. It's so much harder for me to be a fan of the Sabres than it is for the Bills. It always has been. Because the Sabres break my heart more. Because the Sabres have had better teams than the Bills. The Bills have been just bad. The Sabres have players. They have pieces. They have a lot to work with, and they just can't get the right people to work with it, whether it's a GM or a coach. It's always one or the other, or both, with the Sabres. The Bills have had terrible teams up until recently, but the Sabres have had decent players come through the organization, guys that eventually made the Hall of Fame that they've let go, and that's been another part of their MO as a franchise, as a club. Different era, different owner willing to empty his pocketbook and make things happen. But I haven't seen that yet. I haven't seen many things get quote-unquote made by Terry Pegula. I've seen some GMs come in here and make some deals that were ass backwards and had no business being made. But here we are. If Jeff Skinner leaves this team, you're going to have so many reasons to wish that you were not a Buffalo Sabres fan. You're going to have so many more reasons to wish for particular people to be gone. Back to square one if Jeff Skinner leaves. If Jeff Skinner walks out their doors for the last time on locker cleanout day, after ending this season early, if they don't make that happen, if they don't re-sign that guy, they're going to lose so many fans. And rightfully so. Unfortunately, sadly, rightfully so. This needs to change. It has to change. It has to change. Will it change? I honestly don't know. In what way will it change? I honestly don't know. What would I do to change it? I honestly don't know. And that scares me. If I don't know how I would change it, I always know how I would change a sports franchise or whatever. If I was in their shoes, I'd always have a plan. But with this is deep-rooted bleep-ups by the Buffalo Sabres that date back decades ago. And it's just the precedent and the culture and the state of the franchise, the state of the Sabres. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Very thankful for the love and support that I've received these last 3 years from Buffalo sports fans all around the world. Whether you're from Buffalo, New York, whether you're from Orlando, Florida, whether you're from Wyoming, whether you're from Ireland, Canada, I love all you. I love all of the Buffalo Sabres, Buffalo Bills, Buffalo sports fans. I'll be at the Buffalo Bison's opening day Thursday. If anybody is going to the game and they, have any thoughts on the Bisons, feel free to let me know. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. Thomas Take is out.